text tells us that Potiphar didn't worry about anything except one thing. What am I going to eat tonight? All Potiphar had to worry about was what I'm going to eat. He didn't have to worry about his money. He didn't have to worry about his flock. He didn't have to worry about the administrative responsibility of his home. Everything was in the care of Joseph. But watch this. The text tells us that Joseph was a very handsome and well-built young man. He must have spent some time at Planet Fitness. Amen. But he was handsome and well-built. But watch this. Potiphar's wife soon began to look at him lustfully and had the nerve to say, "Come and sleep with me." And she didn't just ask subtly. She demanded that he come and lay with her. Is there anything demanding your attention that is outside of the will of God? You getting ready to go to college, right? There are going to be some things that approach you that are going to demand your attention. But God has favored you, and you got to be careful what you give attention to that's outside of the will of God. Joseph was on a journey, but in that journey, he had to deal with some pit experiences. He had to deal with being sold, and he had to deal with the temptations of this life. Yeah, she demanded that he come sleep with her. But verse 8 says, but Joseph refused. Why, narrator, did Joseph refuse? Text tells us that, look, he told her, my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. No one has more authority than I do. But the one thing he didn't give me authority over was you. God has given us dominion over many things. But there are some things God told us not to touch. You don't believe me? Let's look way back at our granddaddy and grandmama. Everything you look at is yours, but don't eat from the tree in the middle of the garden. And isn't it funny that everything we're told we cannot have and cannot touch is the very thing that we want? The very thing that will send us to hell is the very thing that we want? Nobody has more authority than I. And he has held nothing back from me except you. But why? Because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing? It would not only be a great sin against Potiphar, but it would be a great sin against God.
Yes, sir.
See, it's not enough to just be concerned with how our actions affect those around us. But we got to give more attention to how our affections, our actions rather, affect God. Potiphar's wife was a seducer, spoiled, rich, beautiful, faithless, and she coveted one of the holiest and most attractive men in Egypt. Joseph knew that he could not have Potiphar's wife. But come on, keep reading with me. Verse 10 says, She kept putting the heat on. Day after day after day after day. She kept waving that thing at him. And y'all grown folk know what that thing is. She kept waving it at him. Come on. Get some of this. Yeah. But the more she waved it, the more pressure that was put on him, the more the heat got turned up in the situation, the more Joseph pleased the Lord. So he refused to sleep with her, and he stayed out of her way as much as he could. But one day, he showed up for work and wasn't nobody in the house.
Yes, sir.
Come on now.
Potiphar's wife set him up so that when he came to work, it wouldn't be nobody there but Potiphar and Joseph. Anybody ever been in a situation where it was you and what you know you didn't have no business dealing with? And now you wrestling? Should I stay faithful or should I give in? And the only reason I'm thinking about giving in because ain't nobody else around. Yeah. Joseph was a young man. And even though the scripture doesn't tell us that he wrestled, believe you me, he wrestled. Yeah. Yeah, you put the heat on long enough. Brother could get weak. Amen. But I thank God that Joseph was an example of a godly man that withstood the test of Potiphar's wife. So, watch this. She grabs him, and he tears himself from the coat. And all I could hear in the scripture is Joseph saying, "Not again." Do y'all see what I see? Joseph had been in this situation before. When, preacher? Well, the text tells me that Potiphar's wife ripped off his coat. But the text also told me in the 37th chapter that the brothers ripped off his coat. And Joseph knew that in the 37th chapter, when the brothers ripped off my coat, they threw me into a pit. So I know if I hang around here, I'm going to get thrown into another pit. I heard y'all got a nickname for me. I ain't ready yet. Amen. Amen. So, the situation that he was in was something that was familiar to him. And to avoid being thrown in another pit, he fled from the situation. Little to know that the situation would put him in prison. But don't you know that every step of trouble that he ended up in, the Lord was pleased and God favored him right where he was? My brothers and sisters, it doesn't matter what you go through. If you are faithful to God, if you allow God to walk in front of you, if you allow God to walk beside you, it doesn't matter what you go through. God will lead you along the way. Yeah. God will lead you through the valleys and the shadows of death. Yeah. Don't have to fear no evil because the Lord is with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Joseph was comforted because the Lord was with him. I'm going to my seat. But a few things I want to point out as I go to my seat. Joseph's character, his integrity, was at the stake of being destroyed. When lust isn't satisfied, it turns into hate. And ain't nothing like a woman's scorn. Because the one thing a woman don't like, when she think she all that, is to be rejected. Do I have a witness? But what this also tells me is that this is not the first time she got away with what she was trying to do with Joseph. Only reason Joseph got put in prison was because the brother didn't give in. Yeah. See, the reason the house was empty, because them fellas probably had an encounter with Potiphar's wife. And to keep from losing, their job, they let her get away with what she wanted to get away with. First thing I want to say, when you're a follower of God, is that your faith will be put to the test. And in order for your faith to be faith, it's got to be put to the test. God loved Job. Job served God. But one day, Satan was walking to and fro, seeking whom he may devour. But God offered Job up as a consideration to the devil. Said, Satan, I'll let you touch Job, but don't take his life. The only reason Job serves you is because you got a hedge around him. So God let Job be tempted and tried and stripped by Satan. So much so that at a point in Job's life, he had to say, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. I'm reminded of the 3 Hebrew boys that would not bow to the idol image, the golden calf that Nebuchadnezzar set up. Said, we're not going to bow, but we're going to continue to trust the Lord. And don't you know that because their faith was tested and they didn't give in to Nebuchadnezzar, that they were thrown into a fiery furnace? But because the master could trust them, they went through a furnace that was turned up 7 times hotter, and God brought them out on the other side. My brothers and sisters, our faith, in order for it to be faith, has to be tested. Not only that, the test is to see our loyalty to truth. Because if God tells us what to do, he wants to see if we're going to carry out what he told us not to do in order to prove our faith to be trusted. But watch this. We have to prove our faith, not so much to God, but we have to prove our faith so that others can see that we are who we say we are. Joseph trusted God. He was faithful to God. The household was blessed because of his relationship with God. But God had to see if this was really it. So he used Potiphar's wife. She wanted to test him to see if he really was who he said he was. And because he was who he said he was, when the joker refused to give in and left his coat in the house, she set him up to say that he tried to rape her. My brothers and sisters, she started off with one lie, and then that lie went into another lie. Because when the guards and everybody else came in, she claimed rape. But when her husband got home, he tried to get with me. It's a difference between rape and trying to get with me. Do I have a witness here? Yeah, so Joseph withstood the test. And my brothers and sisters, there's nothing like the master's trust. When God can trust you with a little bit, God can trust you with so much more. St. Paul, thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing me to come and share my little speech with you on the day. But as I go to my seat, Joseph had no idea where he was going, because his dream said that I'm supposed to rule, and those that are going to be under me are going to bow down to me. But what I'm going through right now, it doesn't seem like I'm ever going to get to what God showed me in the 37th chapter. I want you to know that some of us might be going through some situations in life, and where we are, it may not seem like we're going to get to the place that God promised. But I want you to know today, if you keep trusting the process, if you keep trusting the Master, everything you go through is not in vain. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy is coming in the morning. Anybody in here that know that your morning is on the way? Well, come on and stand to your feet. Grab your neighbor by the hand and say, I may have to go through hell. I may have to go through trials. I may have to be lied on. I may have to be stripped. I may have to be put into a pit. But thank God, what you meant for evil, God meant for good.